Ready? We're live already? Oh, what is up? What is up? I didn't have a countdown. We just went right into it. This is In My Circle, and we're just ranting about the 90s, through records. We started a conversation and, unorthodox. Just ranting about, by the way, if you caught the last show, I interviewed Andreas de Jesus, with his book Beyond Demons, and my wife just got done reading it, and oh my God, my wife was like, I can't wait to read it again. Make sure you check out my last interview, the last show where I talked with Andreas, and I said, all the information to pick up that book is there.
Yeah, Beyond Demons by Andreas.
Check it out. I'm about to get ready to read it myself. Check it out.
Just published this year.
Yeah, as he's gonna release a brand new second book to it.
It's very ambitious.
I got my my partner in crime here. We're not really partners in crime. This is my partner.
If he robbed anything, I wasn't there.
Yeah. He's one of my good friend Ruben. He is my producer. He is my, my silent co-host. He's my creative director as well. He tells me what to do, how to do it right, and how to do it better. Right. So we just started about the 90s, and we said, how great music was in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm picking up, first things first, I'm picking up Thriller right here.
Michael
this
Jackson.
Is an original album. Mm-hmm. Does it open up?
I remember when Thriller first came out.
Everything is still there. Mm-hmm. You can see that everything is still there.
It's like an auction.
This is not for sale, by the way. I mean, obviously, I would sell it for a right amount of money, but I don't particularly want to sell it.
Well, a lot of another artists, people probably don't realize this, but back in the '80s and even some '90s, they always had that lean, in the album, as you can see, like Michael Jackson.
I think I have some kind of albums with those.
Let me see. I'm trying to think of
types of
people have done that. I think People Bryson. Trying to think of the
like Keith Sweat stuff.
Keith
like
Sweat.
That.
I think even Stevie Wonder.
Stevie B.
Stevie B. Yep. Everybody had that lean.
Somebody had.
I wonder if there's like a couch or something like that makes you lean like that.
It was one of those.
Had that lean.
It was one of those.
But I gotta tell you, the '90s. I'll be honest. It felt like a tease because everything was coming out between cell phones and the computers, the state of the first public-sized internet. AOL and all the great music.
The music there was on a different level.
Yeah.
It was culturally inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best way to put it.
But mm-hmm.
I mean,
I don't know
especially with
the Wu-Tang.
Some of these right here. We're just crate digging.
Mm-hmm. Even with the music, and I'm gonna tell you, between now and the '90s, hip hop. Me myself, I'm not a hip hop connoisseur, but I gotta tell you, the hip hop in the '90s and '80s was a lot cleaner. It still got the message out.
It had the derogatory, not derogatory, but it had curse
slight
words.
Yeah,
but it was delivering a message.
Right.
It wasn't like disrespectful. It was about.
Yeah, it wasn't about
telling a story.
Right, and none of us like, well, I'm going to kill your partner for this. I got more money than you. My girl's better than you, and so forth and so on. And it's amazing how this came through Wu-Tang Clan here.
I know that's the '90s. We'll say that's the '90s, '80s.
This is definitely
80s.
80s. This has got to be like 1987. Oh, I was close. 86.
But this music, obviously,
Says right there,
this type
86.
of music was getting played still in the 90s.
Hans and Davis.
It's
I'll take you down.
Hanson and Davis.
Hungry. I'm sorry. I said Hansel. No, Hansel and Davis. Hanson and Davis.
Han Solo and Davis.
Hansel and Davis.
Han Solo and Skywalker.
Mm-hmm. And you can see it's really 80s. I don't know. I can't put that picture up there. It's so close, but definitely, boy.
This might be the 90s.
I got to tell you, 1986, I went to my first Mets game in New York. I was 9 years old, and I think they were in the playoffs at that time. And then later, I went to the Yankees game because I have two uncles. That one's a Yankees fan.
This is still the
and
90s.
One's a Mets fan.
80s.
And of course, I was his favorite nephew, so I ended up going to both different playoff games during those years of 86, 87.
I remember
believe.
going to a Mets Phillies game.
Mm-hmm.
No, was it?
I
It was in the 90s. We'll go back 1995, if I'm not mistaken. Spring of 1995, it could have been. And I went out and seen Phillies, and I think it was either the Mets. No, it was the Dodgers. Mets and Dodgers. No, it was Phillies and Dodgers. It was at the Vets. I remember, speaking of baseball, because I was able to take my mom. I think my mom went, my sister, my brother, and me. And we went in a limo. It was kind of cool. It was really, really cool.
Really
we went in a
cool.
limo. We got to see the game in a press box and stuff like that. And it was just surreal. Like it was. I got to see Mike Piazza.
Oh, okay.
Bat.
Right.
I think he was still with the Dodgers. So we're going back in the 90s, 90s.
Yeah, well, me, I'm going back to the 80s with, well, I think, if I stand corrected, because it's been a long time now, but I think Darryl Strawberry, right? Played.
Yes, Al Strawberry played in
played
the
80s, right?
80s.
Yeah.
I think he was a part of the 86 team.
And then you had Bo
The
Jackson.
86ers. Well, Bo Jackson, I mean,
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s.
that was the 80s, 90s. And the crazy thing about Bo Jackson was he was an enigma because
Right.
he played both sports.
Right.
So
Bo
it was
knows
like,
baseball.
oh my God, yeah.
Bo knows football.
Yeah, and I really, speaking of that, that was the 90s. I remember watching the Raiders game. I don't know who they were playing, but I remember watching the Raiders game where Bo Jackson hurt his hip, and that altered his entire career.
Right.
With baseball, because he could, what if it had been if Bo Jackson never hurt his hip and only played baseball?
Right.
I mean, he was on a cusp. I mean, of being insanely great, and it's crazy because back then I remember his baseball cards. I got into baseball in the 80s. I wasn't a Mets fan, but I got into it. I remember the 87 Topps and Bo Jackson rookie,
the top cards.
future star, was one of those cards that everybody wanted. And
I got to tell you, in contrast with that, with the games,
and those cards are still those cards are still freaking
it was
valuable.
let me see. The names are at the tip of my tongue. Of course, you had Topps, you had
Dunruss.
and there was another one.
Well, Dunruss came out in the early 90s.
It was like
No, Dunruss was out in the early 80s, right? Dunruss, Topps, Score, Upper Deck.
Upper Deck. Thank you.
Upper Deck, everybody remembers the 1989, iconic Ken Griffey Jr. rookie, where he was, I think, the one of the set, number one of the set, and they made him, he was like the number one draft pick.
I remember,
and people's thought process with Upper Deck bringing a new company, launching their, famous line, and picking him to be the anchor of the set. not knowing ever if Ken Griffey Jr. was gonna become the kid. You know, we know
Right.
who he is now. The greatest swing, the sweetest swing. And believe me, I'm a Ken Griffey Jr. fan. I know I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, diehard Atlanta Braves fan. But you can see I have 2016 induct kids, Griffies. So I'm a Griffey fan. These are my everyday my everyday Griffies, and yeah, you know.
Oh yeah.
So I'm a big Griffey fan.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, like, you know, the '90s, late '90s, you know, between going to
Griffey, McGuire, you know,
Yeah.
remember Sammy Sosa, the
man, yes,
home
Sammy
run
Sosa.
chase.
Chase.
I mean, yeah, granted, you had that steroid stigma,
Right.
but I feel that, you know, everybody, you didn't have to even be a fan of baseball. I think everybody was watching it. Everybody was watching it because they wanted to see history done. And, you know,
Depending on some games, you know, everybody's watching it. you know,
remember, historically, in the '90s, baseball had that strike that ended with no World Series. They just
Oh, I
abruptly
remember.
stopped. It was 1994.
I remember that. They had what do you call it? Not junior players, but
The minor leaguers.
minor leaguers play in the place of the major leaguers
Well,
just to keep the stadium full. But
it
yeah,
didn't really work.
Yeah.
And nobody was going to go see minor leaguers. They want to see stars. They want to see the names.
You know, actually, we did better than, and if I recall, college games were up at that time, I believe, because since they were on strike, nobody really didn't want to go to minor league games, and people felt that it was more fun going to the college games. You know, watching them with the baseball and even
Yeah, everybody. Yeah,
college
different sports ended up being more popular that year because here you take over 100+ games out of the equation and poof, you don't have a season.
And I think if you cancel so many games in a season, that's the whole year or the whole season rather.
I mean, I think it was by a certain amount. You know, if there was no resolution by a certain day
a
or
certain
a
amount of
certain
games.
time, that
That's a lot to
the
catch
whole
up
season would be done.
with. Right. Because
And I remember being
so many games and so little days unless they extended the time.
Well, I do remember that did they play at all?
I think for one season, I think they didn't play at all. Because I think by the time I think it was like
It was 1994.
yeah.
But I don't know if they. Yes, they did play. They did play because of the
I'll be honest
Yankees. Yes, it stopped in the middle of the year. It wasn't even. It was like the beginning of the season.
Okay.
It was maybe 2 months in, 3 months in. I could be wrong. 2 months in. It was maybe June.
Right.
It was about to get hot, and the Braves were in first place and the Yankees were in first place.
Okay.
And
Right.
those were probably going to be Yankees and Braves World Series. That was how it was going to.
But I mean,
But I remember.
Oh, okay, that's great.
Because I remember 1995,
yeah.
the Braves came back and won the World Series, beating the Indians in Game 6, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I know '95. It was back
Or
in full
Game 6 or
swing.
Game 5. I think it was Game 6 or Game 5. One of those. I remember.
amazing.
I mean, 99.5, I remember.
Let's see what type of records you got here, real quick.
I mean, yeah, we
Going to the
got.
records. I know.
I know we're sitting there talking about history.
I know history. You know.
Oh, here's one. Here's one right here.
Let's see what you have here. Oh, C.C. Peniston. Finally, it happened to me right in front of my face. Oh, you remember? Speaking of '90s, remember CC Music Factory?
Yeah.
Yeah, CNC Music
I actually
Factory.
have. That's crazy you say that.
And this came out in.
That was definitely 90.
Oh, this was definitely like 94, 93.
93, 92.
Two. Yeah. Yeah, this definitely was 93, 94 because I was in high school. And I remember my good friend's now wife. Have it, but CC Pen Edition, finally, Monomix, Final Me. So this is all club music, club and remix. Finally Records. And there goes Gino. He's walking out the door.
Have a good one. Have a good one.
There goes Gino. See you.
Have a good one, brother.
I'll see you Friday, Gino. So. Yeah.
The boss is telling us to put stuff away. He's telling us.
Where's that right there? But yeah, we'll put this one back.
I'm trying to, we're sitting here just randomly going through. Hold on, I got it.
All right.
I kind of have this in some weird
thing.
Order here.
We got about 2 more minutes.
We'll pull this out.
Is that it? No?
I was trying to pull something out.
Anyway, I'm going to commentary a little bit. I'm going to tell you, like in the 90s, I don't know, for some people, does it feel like it was like kind of like a tease because we had like so many things going on between, great music, and even some of the old music was like remixed and everything, and even the artists from the 70s and 80s were still making music in the early 90s and late 80s, and it just seems like I don't know, it's like they took the talent out and just put in some kind of like fly-by-nights.
Yeah, the music today really isn't.
I
mean, I'm not going to take anything away from great music,
right?
But I'm not going to say that everything out there is great.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got to remember.
I guess that's fair to say.
Because remember, they used to have. I mean, when you actually had like the top charts, you remember, like this was the top album,
top 40,
top 40, top 10, and the top 40, the top 100.
I remember
and
Casey Kasem would be
right.
telling you who was who,
and everything, and going to Tower Records. You remember that? Tower Records. So many different music stores, right? Yeah, Tower Records. You had
Sony.
Well, I'm talking about the music stores.
Virgin Records?
Yeah, Virgin Records was actually a store,
but it was actually a record label as well.
Record label, yep. And even Best Buy and other stores had albums, that you can go to and everything. And then of course we had the CDs and tapes, so we actually had choices before the streaming came along.
Oh yeah.
You had a choice of the album records, or of course when we became teenagers, we had the CDs. We had I guess they still call it the Walkman, right? The CD. Or Discman.
Well, Discman.
Discman. And
here's another one. Dr. Dre, the next episode, featuring Snoop.
Here you go. It's a whole Blackbird right there.
There's one that's it's not just club. It's a little bit of
a little bit of everything. And yeah. And I think a lot of us,
this is 90s.
Oh yeah, I gotta tell you too. At the 90s, if we had, some people disagree with me, but I'll say if we had like the cell phones back in the 90s, I still think that we wouldn't be so in tune with it, because you got to think about this is how I look at it. We had like video games, we had Sega, we had Nintendo, right, and there was another game system that didn't last long called TurboGrafx 16. But anyway, my point is that despite that we had the game system, we still had the music that we listened to. We still went out and played with friends. Despite that, we had the technology. So I don't think the cell phone would have actually deterred us from hanging out and stuff like that. I think at that time in the 90s, we would have used it as a tool versus as a something you do all day long.
Look what we did with the
because like with game systems, even when we had game systems, we still had the arcades.
Yeah.
Even though we had a game system at home, we still went to the arcade.
Even though we had gaming systems, we still went out and had fun. We still went out and rode bikes.
Went to the movies.
The times of BMXs, getting hurt.
Oh, you remember the competition? Oh, I got the Mongoose, or I got the BMX.
Yeah, well, now and you look back, now those types of competitions don't really mean anything because, I have like 15 bikes. Mm-hmm. Like literally, I have like 15 BMX bikes. Give or take A couple of bikes would be smaller, but I have about, we'll say almost 15 BMX bikes.
Yeah.
And,
And we love going out to ride our bikes.
yeah,
You kidding me?
I mean, now I'm trying to find the best time to go out and ride my bike.
Yeah.
But life is constantly knocking on the doors. Say, hey, you got to do this or you got to do that. This whole weekend I put a TV stand together, and a new TV. I mean, of course, I got to enjoy a brand new TV with a bigger screen, double the size of my original older TV. But on a normal, it'd be like, hey, I'm gonna go out. When I was younger, I'd be, hey, I'm gonna go ride a bike. There was not a worry in the world, And some of us had like a Discman, and those were the '90s. You know what I'm saying?
It was. I mean, between the '80s, especially the '90s, because we had the new technology. But I feel that it was like it's such a great era.
Absolutely, it was.
Next to the 70s.
I feel that the era now, or the eras that are anchored and supported by now,
right?
Because that covers a wide net of different individuals. I'm a '70s guy. I know I might be old, but I'm last of the '70s, and growing up in the '80s and the '90s. The '90s was, in my opinion,
I mean, we had so
the
much
most
new things
culturally influential
of
that time.
I want to tell you this, along with in the '90s, with the game consoles. Remember, there was we had these ultimate game competitions sponsored by Sega and Nintendo.
Yeah.
Remember, they're like this.
People
huge
really
arenas.
made
money.
Made money.
Yeah,
bikes with BMX. They had like competition. They had like Olympic, or they had like.
Yeah.
I mean, they still have.
But it's not like it was before.
Yeah, they still have. I guess gaming went to Twitch now. Like, there's big streaming. There's like circle jerks with. Yeah, you heard that. I said circle jerks with like gaming things. Nothing. No knock against them.
Yeah.
It was a joke.
Exactly. But we're gonna go ahead. And
Absolutely. We're gonna finish it. We're gonna finish up real quick, but real quick, like, subscribe, and share.
Like, subscribe, and comment on his channel here in my circle.
And let us know. If you have a story, let us know what you let us know. Let us know what you want to talk about. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about. Anything. If you want us here live, if you want to, you have any guests or anything, give us a holler, give us a comment, like, subscribe, share, and let us know. This is In My Circle. I'm DJ Noise. Have a good night. We're out.